And it's time for Lefties Losing It. And tonight's edition of Lefties will feature some of the ugliness, some of the utter depravity that has followed the murder of Charlie Kirk, a thoroughly decent, principled man brutally murdered today. And the soulless ghouls of the left were quick to celebrate.
There are a lot of people that are like, no matter what side of politics you're on, you should never celebrate something bad happening to someone. I, on the other hand, do cheer when bad things happen to bad people.
Charlie Kirk just got shot.
Well, breaking news, folks. Seems somebody just took a shot at one of the Fastest favorite 5-mile-wide mouthpieces, Charles Chuckle Kirk.
And sadly, the vile left has not been shy about showcasing their ugliness, their utter callous depravity. This is what leftism does to your mind and soul.
Charlie Kirk got shot and killed. How do you feel?
Happy. Goodbye.
Wow. Did you see that Charlie Kirk just got shot and killed?
That's good.
Wow. That's good. That's good that people are getting shot just off a political view.
Charlie Kirk got shot and killed today. We're just getting people's opinions. How do you feel about that?
Girl, someone had to do it. And that's how I feel at this point in time. But
You know, I appreciate your honesty. I truly do. So you said someone had to do it.
yes. Try not to get all pulled up into that, but he was a misogynist. He was a disgusting person with disgusting beliefs.
Enough of that trash. Let's look at how the media professionals covered this tragic event, this act of domestic terrorism. Here is MSNBC.
In which a shooting like this happens.
Yeah, and again, I emphasize what you just emphasized. We don't know any of the full details of this. That we don't know if this was a supporter shooting their gun off in celebration, or so we have no idea.
Yeah, pretty sure we knew immediately it wasn't that. Charlie Kirk supporters don't go around shooting their guns in celebration like they're attending some wedding in Iraq. And of course, MSNBC had to engage in victim blaming by calling Charlie divisive.
Charlie Kirk is a divisive figure, polarizing, lightning rod, whatever term you want to use. Why?
Well, he's one of MAGA's most prominent voices online. He hosts a near daily podcast.
But that was just stupid. What I'm about to play you is straight out depraved, disgusting commentary. This is Matthew Dowd again on MSNBC, not long after Charlie was shot.
He's been one of the most divisive, especially divisive younger figures in this, who is constantly sort of pushing this sort of hate speech or sort of aimed at certain groups. And I always go back to hateful thoughts lead to hateful words, which then lead to hateful actions. And I think that's the environment we're in, that people just, you can't stop with these sort of awful thoughts you have and then saying these awful words and not expect awful actions to take place.
Matt.
And that's the unfortunate environment we're in.
That was so vile, so hateful and frankly deranged and dangerous that even MSNBC had to take some action, and they've sacked Matthew Dowd, but it's MSNBC. He may be back before the end of the month. And the asinine commentary wasn't restricted to commentators on MSNBC. Governors joined in. Here is the rotund governor of crime-riddled Illinois, blaming President Trump, the man Charlie Kirk worked tirelessly to re-elect. Governor Pritzker blames Donald Trump for fomenting political violence.
Political violence, unfortunately, has been ratcheting up in this country. We saw the shootings, the killings in Minnesota. We've seen other political violence occur in other states. And I would just say it's got to stop. And I think there are people who are fomenting it in this country. I think the president's rhetoric often foments it.
Did that nincompoop really mention the Minnesota shooter, the trans-identified lunatic who shot children in a Catholic school and wanted to kill Donald Trump? Yeah, it's Trump who was almost killed by an assassin's bullet who is to blame for leftist violence, not these lefties losing it.
He insulted your wife.
Yes.
He came down the escalator and called Mexicans rapists and murderers. He said, well, what do you think I should have done? I said, I think you should have punched him in the face and then gotten out of the race. You would have been a hero.
I'd like to punch him in the face. I said if we were in high school, I'd take him behind the gym and beat the hell out of him.
punch some people in the face.
When was the last time an actor assassinated a president?
They're still going to have to go out and put a bullet in Donald Trump, and that's a fact.
Look as his character is stabbed to death.
Where is John Wilkes Booth when you need him?
I have thought an awful lot about blowing up the White House.
I will go and take Trump out tonight.
And if you see anybody from that cabinet in a restaurant, in a department store, at a gasoline station, you get out and you create a crowd. And you push back on them. And you tell them they're not welcome anymore, anywhere.
President Donald Trump has called the murder of Charlie Kirk a dark moment for America.
To my great fellow Americans, I am filled with grief and anger at the heinous assassination of Charlie Kirk on a college campus in Utah. Charlie inspired millions, and tonight, all who knew him and loved him are united in shock and horror. This is a dark moment for America. Charlie Kirk traveled the nation, joyfully engaging with everyone interested in good faith debate. His mission was to bring young people into the political process, which he did better than anybody ever, to share his love of country and to spread the simple words of common sense. On campuses nationwide, he championed his ideas with courage, logic, humor, and grace.
And the president noted the spate of deadly political violence from the left. He called such acts, including the assassination of Charlie Kirk, as acts of domestic terrorism.
It's a long past time for all Americans and the media to confront the fact that violence and murder are the tragic consequence of demonizing those with whom you disagree day after day, year after year, in the most hateful and despicable way possible. For years, those on the radical left have compared wonderful Americans like Charlie to Nazis. From the attack on my life in Butler, Pennsylvania last year, which killed a husband and father, to the attacks on ICE agents, to the vicious murder of a healthcare executive in the streets of New York, to the shooting of House Majority Leader Steve Scalise and 3 others, radical left political violence has hurt too many innocent people and taken too many lives. Charlie was the best of America, and the monster who attacked him was attacking our whole country. An assassin tried to silence him with a bullet, but he failed, because together we will ensure that his voice, his message, and his legacy will live on for countless generations to come.
Let's bring in documentary filmmaker and commentator Ami Horowitz. Ami, this is a dark day for America. I don't think those celebrating Charlie Kirk's assassination, and I've seen, sadly, a lot of that on social media, I don't think those people understand what they have unleashed. The anger, the sadness over this assassination is profound.
Yeah, I think you're right. And before I spit fire, and believe me that I will, let me take a step back and talk about Charlie for a moment, and just some personal anecdotes. I considered him a friend. Even though we were a generation apart, he was somebody that if I had a question or some advice, I'd call them and reach out to him. And he's so generous with his time. The first time I met him, God, it was well over 10 years ago, maybe 13, 14 years ago. He was a teenager. He was just starting Turning Point. I think we met at a PragerU conference in California. And somebody introduced the two of us. So this is a guy you should know. His name was Charlie Kirk. He's a comer. And Charlie had been fundraising for Turning Point USA, right? It was the seed, the beginning of this organization. And in our conversation, he was talking about the people he's raising money for while he was there. And for anyone who knows who raises money, who has investors, you keep those things close to your vest, right? That's the lifeblood, the money that keeps and creates the organization you're creating. And he mentioned one of these billionaires that he raised some money from. And I just mentioned, just casually, that's a great guy to get money from. I've been trying to reach him for years. Not even asking for a favor. And he immediately said, here's the guy's cell phone number. Give him a call. I'm sure he's happy to help. Okay, that was the kind of guy Charlie Kirk was, okay? A friend to all. Yeah. a hater of no one. He criticized people, but he did not have hatred in his heart, which makes this even more difficult. Look, I have all types of friends, right? I have friends on the far right. I have friends on the far left. I have friends everywhere in between. And I got to tell you, Rita, I am scared to call some of my friends on the center left, never mind the far left, to talk about this. I'm afraid what they're going to say. Going over the social media, going over Instagram and Facebook and Twitter, and listening to what people are saying, even in the mainstream media. I heard you talk about MSNBC over and over again. I think it's important to note the callousness in which they're covering this saddens me and scares me. And if a friend of mine said to me, "Oh, I'm so happy Charlie Kirk is dead," I don't know if I could talk to that person again. I got to be honest with you, Rita. It's just this one divide, and it's blaming it's so funny. It's the left blaming the victim, right? He deserved it, what he said. By the way, he wasn't an alt-right figure. He was a mainstream Republican, right? He believed in family values. He believed that if you're a woman, you're a woman. If you're a man, if you're a man. He didn't have hate in his heart. He was about openness. He had a free speech roadshow, right, where he went to engage people on the left, not to demonize them or attack them, to find out what they thought. And this, I got to say this, we talked about the violence of the left over and over again. I hate it, but we keep talking about it because it's a recurring theme in our political landscape. And this is another example of that truth, that the political violence we've seen mostly, not exclusively, but mostly comes from the left. And we see on the right, what that actually is the exception that proves the rule, right? And I want to go back for a second to Louis Mangione, because I got to say, every time I think about Charlie's death, I think about Louis Mangione. That to me was really, and the pun is intended, the turning point to this. Because it was when he was murdered, this man who was a healthcare executive, he wasn't even a political figure, right? He didn't have, as far as I know, any political thoughts, certainly not publicly, right? He was a businessman who was murdered because he happened to be in an industry the left didn't like, okay? And the mainstream left, Vita, were talking about how wonderful it was and joked about the killing of this business executive. That, to me, was a significant change in our political culture. Our campuses are, look, as you know, I'm no stranger to violence from the political left. I've been attacked physically on a university campus not that long ago. Why? Because I raised the American flag. Look, you said it. This is something, they've unleashed something dark and terrible, and I'm afraid of what's to come.
I'm with you 100%. If I hear anybody in my orbit express any sort of joy or try to justify this murder, they're cut. You can't have people like that in your life. That's just pure evil. Why would you want to have that in your circle? And like you said, Charlie was hardly a radical. He just expressed very much mainstream views. Things like there's only two genders, that people should get married and raise kids. So that's where you find your greatest happiness. He wasn't some firebrand with radical ideas, not that would justify violence, but we are seeing violence on university campuses, and research from the Foundation for Individual Rights and Expression shows that 1 in 3 students say that political violence is acceptable. We've got 3 in 4 who are saying that shouting down someone is acceptable on campus, but 1 in 3, Army, who think violence is acceptable, to silence someone who you don't agree with. That is just chilling.
It is, and that certainly tracks with my experience. It's also a feature of the left. Look, the truth is the left has no affinity for free speech, right? They haven't for a long time. They used to be champions of free speech. I remember the days, and Rita, I'm sure you do also, where the ACLU, right, a leftist organization, championed free speech to the point where, I don't know if many of you guys remember, but when I was a kid, the Nazis were marching in a town called Skokie outside Chicago, and it was the ACLU, the left, that defended their right to do that. Well, what has happened to the ACLU is indicative of the left in general and how they've changed their views on free speech. No other than the New York Times, right, did this really fascinating article a number of years ago about the transformation of the ACLU, and it says everything about the left and free speech, and that they had, and the New York Times admitted that they have completely changed their perspective. They have become an anti-free speech organization. They had become an organization that censors people's speech, which tracks exactly with what we see on the left, particularly on our campuses, where this has been this petri dish of radicalism that we've seen, right, and violence that we've seen.
Ami Horowitz, thank you so much for your time tonight.